Yo, you and I were talking a little bit about the Great Panic of 1907.
Yes.
For the
Well,
show.
I think it was more you talking and me listening, but we were discussing it. Yes, absolutely.
Well, no, I mean you had a good story as well that I'm sure you Googled to get the exact details on, so you could state it eloquently in a few minutes when I'm done. And the
Yes.
The Panic of 1907, if you guys don't know, it was also called the Knickerbocker Crisis, as it was the Knickerbocker Bank of New York.
Not to be confused with the current crisis that the New York Knickerbockers have been in for the past 30 years.
Likely a curse left over from those times. As it was a very, very interesting parallel to me. Let me enter you a villain. Okay, a villain who owned a very, very large copper operation and decided one day that he was going to corner the stock in this copper company. Now, he messed up and screwed that deal up. It was the United Copper Company. And the manager of the Knickerbocker Bank, one of the owners, was good friends with this guy who tried to corner the market. It caused a misconception that he was wrapped up in the United Copper cornering deal. People thought that the Knickerbocker Bank had gone broke the same way that this copper magnate had gone broke, because they were just close friends. Now, no matter how much this bank manager assured he had nothing to do with it, and he wasn't lying, there was none of this scandal on the books of Knickerbocker Bank, well, the customers didn't care. That next day, there was a line around the block of people trying to get their money out of this bank. Well, when people saw that, they said, uh-oh, well, I don't know if my money is safe at this other bank, and it caused a bank run. And that felt very similar to Luna to me, that some asshole tried to hold the market hostage to make a bunch of money, screwed up, caused a major panic, and entities that otherwise would have been solvent, like the Knickerbocker Bank. And by solvent, what do we mean, right? On paper, the Knickerbocker Bank had more than enough assets on their books to cover their liabilities. But as you know, once a bank takes your money, they lend it out. It's not all sitting there in the bank. If every person who gave the bank their money went to go get it out at the same time, we'd all be fucked. This is the balance keeping society there. And most capital requirements at banks are 5%. Okay, so that's how much money is sitting in the bank. Now, this felt very similar to crypto to me. I said, wow, that cornering of the copper market, just the cockiness of this guy to try to corner the copper market reminded me so much of the cockiness of Do Kwon to try to hold crypto hostage with a stable coin backed by Bitcoin. Okay? Felt very similar. And this weekend, as we saw forced liquidation, now on Friday, you remember how chomping at the bit, I was like, oh man, I got to sit on my hands not to buy it. Like, oh, it looks so good. But we were worried about one more weekend, right? We got all the news about, we kept saying it, got like, no matter what, it's less important to catch the bottom, okay, than it is to not screw up 3 times, not lose all your capital catching a falling knife. We knew there could be one more weekend of flush, one more weekend of panic. It happened exactly like that. as ETH careened towards 800. I think it got to 860, 850, a little different on every exchange. But we saw these forced liquidations of people who on paper actually had more assets than their liabilities. Okay, just like a lot of these banks at the time. Now, if you look under the surface, many of these banks were actually lending out cheap money to people who were betting it on stocks. There was a negative feedback loop that ended up with the stock market that really got the panic going. It caused the government and JP Morgan at the time to step. Even the government did not know what to do. They looked to the great financial minds of the day. And at first, Morgan didn't want any part of it because he said, the stock market's for pikers, right? You know, people think JP Morgan was this big stock market magnate. He actually thought the stock market was for punters. If he was going to make a move, he bought a company, right? This guy started US Steel. Okay, that stock still trades today. How many stocks from the 1800s still trade today? All right, US Steel, symbol X. Go check it out.
Is that what actually, yeah, they US Steel bought a lot of steel companies and stuff in the city where I'm from.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So they call in JP Morgan, okay, and they need his help. They need his money, okay? He wasn't embroiled in any of this stock market stuff. He was more than solvent. He needed to get the bank managers together and accept a deal from him. So he called them all to his house and he brought them into his library and he started to talk with them and they couldn't come up with a deal, okay? He wanted to put up 25 million. They thought that was too little for what they owe, blah, 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 blah. He walks out of the study, closes the door behind him, takes a key out of his pocket and locks it. And he yells, "Figure out a deal. I'll let you out when you do." He retreats to his study. He starts playing solitaire. He comes back at 2 a.m, opens the door, goes in, asks the men if there's a deal. After some rancor, they say no, closes it, locks it again, goes back, plays some more solitaire. At 6 a.m, his lawyers bring him a contract.
Why didn't they just text someone on their cell phone?
He brings in a contract. He opens the door. He slams it on the table. He goes, "Here's the point, and here's where you sign." They all looked at each other. The first bank manager of the largest bank at the time grabbed his pen and he signed it. The others followed. And JP Morgan staved off what could have been a depression similar to the 1930s by bailing people out, essentially. This eventually led to the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank because in 1909, kind of remnants of this showed its head again. And the need to stave it off required a larger hand than just a single banker. The Federal Reserve was formed. But this reminded me of Sam now over the weekend, saying that he will bail out people who need to be, even if it shows a loss on his book. Now, there's the bullshit because, you know, the same way JP Morgan went in there and he made so much money off the panic. Not only did he make money, he also learned to respect the stock market a little more, which was interesting. Whereas before he considered it a gambling parlor for the poors, he actually he realized the importance the stock market was starting to play in American life at that point.
Yeah, so I'm just going to pull this article up while you're talking about it. But Sam Bankman-Fried, of course, of FTX says FTX has responsibility to step in and stem crypto contagion. The FTX CEO said that the core driver of the current crypto recession is the Federal Reserve's tightening fiscal policy. But he did go on to say that in a lot of ways, FTX has a fiscal responsibility, you know, them still being very solvent, very liquid, lots of funds in the war chest to deploy, that, you know, they might have to, and I'm going to air quote here, bite the bullet and bail out some of these funds that are kind of going going down with the way that they've been using leverage, and of course the way that crypto has gone, getting liquidated. I mean, it's a double-edged sword for the. I mean, they're going to be going in there and buying things at a huge, steep discount just to bail these people out. Then, of course, they get to sit on those funds and do whatever they want with them. But if you're in a position to be very liquid and still be paying your employees, and FTX as an exchange, of course, has a large cash flow generating business, like hugely profitable, even in times like these. It's not quite as what's the term for that? Is that altruistic? It's not quite as selfless as he may be making it seem. But Sam Bankman-Fried, 30 years old, saving the crypto industry, I guess, as he says.
Well,
but keep going.
I think it's less about seeming selfless and more about making people feel safu, right?
Yeah, it's not never waste a good marketing opportunity, though.
Right. And it's much more that he wants to let people know that even if they think where their money is right now, that the place is insolvent, that for him it's worth saving because of contagion. That doesn't mean he's going to save everybody, right? Like, why were certain firms saved in 2009 versus other ones that were let to die, like Lehman, right? Like, you go in, you look at these books and you go, okay, they're levered up. They need money now, but are these assets going to be worth something in 5 years? Okay. If Sam goes and looks at 3AC's book and he sees that they own stuff that he believes will be worth a lot more in 5 years, he'll go give them the money for their short-term obligations. And what that does, two things. That not only helps fund the obligations they have, it slows people that people go, oh, okay, Sam is stepping in. Now I'm not as worried about my money. It slows down the rate of withdrawals as well. So Sam is coming in as the JP Morgan of 1907 or the Warren Buffett of 2000. Remember, Warren Buffett came in and helped to stave off a depression in 2009 with some pretty big, heavy-handed $45 billion checks to people like Goldman Sachs, right? This is what Sam is doing. Now, we're talking about a guy that was getting $500 million of liquidations a day for the past few weeks. FTX has been banking, okay? Liquidations on book. This guy's the bookie. He doesn't care which way it goes. He just cares that it goes, right? That is how they are banking right now. And it is all, we've been talking about it for a while, that all the signs are in place for a bottom. Okay. The we're going to zero talk, and not the we're going to zero talk by the idiots you see on Twitter. We're talking about the Nouriel Rubinis of the world, which our two can bring up now, who we have some fun claim chowder going on here. You don't.
Well, it ties in perfectly to what we were talking about on Friday. How the people on the outside looking in, I mean, every time this happens, are quick to just point it out with little to no context of what's happened over the past 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Right. I guess in crypto's case, almost 14 years now. You
never want to copy trade people, right? But there are thought leaders that we look up to, Kobe being one of them, right? Who told you that this bear market was coming. Told you it was going to get worse the whole way down. Called it as good as anybody has called anything, right? You kind of respect. You're waiting for this guy to turn bullish again. You need him to say that the pain, because a lot of people listen to him. People, you could argue that it makes it worse when somebody like this is bearish. It adds to the negative feedback loop, right? Well, he has seen all he needs to see at this point. And I'm not saying he's put out any great calls for a V bounce or things, whatever, but he feels pretty good that crypto's not going much lower. Hell, could it go back to 800 again this weekend? Are we out of it? No. I mean, you look at it right now, everyone, and it's a very nice bounce. If you bought the exact bottom over the weekend, I'm sure you made a very nice bag, and no one is saying that. But We're at 1100. This is right where ETH was before it collapsed down to 800 over the weekend. We've done nothing here. If you had gone away for the weekend and not look at your screen and came back, you may feel the exact same way you did on Friday. Precarious, right? Like, we're just at 1100 still. Like, what's going on? Like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
But it does go back to what we were saying about, like, you know, is ETH going to hit triple digits? And I think the general consensus was, yeah, that felt sort of inevitable, especially where we were sitting, I guess, right on this peak here. But also did go on to say that it would likely pretty much get bought up, as these prices, again, for institutions who have been waiting a long time to get in, and the institutional money are the ones that, you know, really move the prices. But look, I mean, you had basically this steep drop down to just under $900, so didn't quite get to the $800 that everybody was calling for. And I mean, it snapped back up. You know, of course, you get a little bit more sell pressure, but once it hits that, and then it was just straight back up again. That's not to say that it can't collapse below that support level. But the first test at these sub 4-digit prices were met with a lot of purchasing. So
it was the first aggressive, you know, regardless that it was running in place, it was the first aggressive buy response that we have seen in this market, and I don't know how long. Okay.
Well, I mean, earlier in the week on Wednesday, we did have that dip to $1,000, and it did snap back up to $1,200. Pretty much in the same a couple hours, but
that's nowhere near the bounce from 850 to 1200, which is what we did over the weekend. We got
correct. Yeah, but we did have that good buy pressure, but like it is, yeah, you are right.
And the thing is, like, a lot of the psyops right now are from the institutions, right? There's a digital assets conference coming up in New York. I think it was July 13th or 14th. I got to double check the dates. If you saw the roster of who was sponsoring that conference, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, okay, exactly what we're talking. Like, while they are telling you it's going to zero, they're getting all their rich buddies together to decide what to buy. All right, it's not about picking the exact price of the bottom. It's deciding right now whether this was the final bubble or not. Right? It doesn't matter. You know. You buy it at 400, it could still go to zero. You buy it at 800, it could still. Everyone's trying to figure out, was this the everything bubble? Are we going to zero now for 2 decades? You know what I mean? Are a lot of the coins that I know fucking done? Because if this was 1999, all right, tech didn't get back up to its NASDAQ peak for almost 20 years after that. So, you know, you may need a job between now and then if that's what happens to crypto. This is what we're trying to judge right now, and it seems very unlikely. This seems like, you know, there were early adopter institutions that got in last time, but I actually think you're going to see real big money start to get in publicly. And what is that going to do? It's going to push regulation. Now, regulation has been what people thought were going to cause what we just went through. Okay. And I bet you what's going to happen is we're going to bounce here. Now, I'm not saying we're going to bounce from today on. I'm saying
it's not a permanent bounce.
No, within this next week or two, we're going to find a real bottom and bounce. We may have found it on Saturday. We may find it during this week. Whatever it is, we're going to find a real bottom and bounce. I don't know whether that bounce goes to 1,700, 2,500, or 3,000. I think 3,000 is the least likely, all right? But if
have you posted this on Twitter?
What's that?
What you're saying right now?
No.
Well, I mean, there you go. Check the sentiment. If you say crypto's going to 3,000, how bad is the response?
No, well, you know, I've been putting out polls. I love this, you know, because like if you put out a tweet and you try to judge sentiment by like, very few people like stuff, right? Like people will read things, they'll like it in there. I do it all the time. You read it, you like it in your head and you just keep scrolling. You don't stop to like.
Oh, I don't know why I wasn't thinking like liking on Twitter. I thought you meant just liking stuff in general. You're like, very few people like stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay.
No. I'm saying like to actually like the tweet.
Yeah.
But I have
engagement's hard on Twitter, man. Like people on Instagram, they just click like on everything.
But I've noticed when I put out a poll, I get crazy engagement. Double to quadruple what I would get in like likes or something. Like if,
I do feel very inclined to answer polls. I will say that.
People love to give their opinion, especially if you give them like multiple choice. You make it kind of easy. So putting out sentiment polls is great, and I will later today. I'll put out I'll say, where do you think this crypto bounce lasts, and we'll do 1,700, 2,500, and 3,000.
And you got to put in it doesn't.
Okay, all right, because I think you can do 4. All right.
Yeah. You got to let somebody say like it's 1,000.
All right, let's do it live. Let's do it live. Fuck it.
While you're doing that, I am going to reference the Nouriel Roubini tweets that you sent me this morning.
Give them context too. Kobe retweeted it, and
no, and I mean people love to point this out too on the other side of it, but this is from November 20th, 2018. So at that time we were firmly in a crypto bear market. Bitcoin went through a very slow slide down to its lows of about 4K. But the rest of crypto is a lot more aggressive than that.
And let me just say, Nouriel Roubini is up there with Peter Schiff. These are the two most famous crypto bears because they have some standing on Wall Street, enough that like CNBC and Bloomberg pick up all their sound bites type of. So just to give you context about who this person is and why we're even listening to what he's saying. But go ahead, Art.
No. So in 2018, November 20th, with BTC down almost 80% from its peak, from 20K down to about 4K, keep those numbers in mind, and all other cryptocurrencies down 80 to 99%, I rest my case that this crypto bubble went bust for good. I feel vindicated. So I will take a break for a few days from this toxic crypto Twitter waste of time to convince zealots. All right. Saw a lot of those comments in 2018. So let's flash forward to now.
Wrong. Okay. Crypto not only came back, but made new all-time highs in a big way. Continue.
I don't think anybody here doesn't know that.
Too bad. I wanted.
And if you don't, Bitcoin did hit $70,000 last year. So there you go. Bitcoin now. So this was tweeted out 2 days ago, June 18th, 2022. So not quite 4 years later, but Bitcoin now below 19K, and keep in mind that the last high was 20K, a 72% crash from its all-time high in November of 2021. Thousands of other shitcoins have lost 99% of their value and disappeared, which shitcoins tend to do, and we're not shy to that fact. And even the other top 10 quote-unquote cryptocurrencies have lost 80 to 90% of their value from their all-time high. This Ponzi house of cards is collapsing. 4 years later, the lows are now the highs, and the narrative and the tweet is basically just copy and paste.
Like literally, like I wonder if he's trolling. There's two things that went.
Yeah, I wonder. You got to believe that this guy. I mean, we all know how people tend to talk on Twitter. It's engagement farming, and strong opinions get retweets, and they're rallying cries. But I mean, you got to believe this guy has been around the block long enough to understand what he just said and how just batshit backwards.
I mean, he's a brilliant guy, right? And you like when you have a tweet like that if it's wrong, people can retweet and put.
Yeah, it's not like he deleted this one either.
Right. And he probably sees that thing once a week. There's probably some crypto noob who learns the story and like retweets it with a comment once a week, and it pops up in his notifications.
100%.
Right? Like this is, so he knows, and he knows a good marketing opportunity. The other cynical thing that went through my head is this guy knows how much influence he has, right? Let's say I wanted to 10x long something, and I knew that a large cacophony of morons thought I was a Contra. Well, I'd put out a Contra tweet, the same thing that marked the quote unquote bottom last time, and I'd get long, and I'd put out that bottom tweet. and I'd know people like Kobe would retweet it and get all the crypto people lathered up, and I'd cause a 50% bounce in 2 days. Now, but the thing is, too, is that even illegal?
I don't know.
He's not saying buy or sell.
No. Yeah, it's
you didn't make any buy or sell.
They know how to play the game.
Right,
sure.
right.
Yeah.
You could argue if that was what he was doing, it may be unethical. I mean, you could say that illegal, not even close. You couldn't even come up with a law to breach that.
A couple things, DC investor. If this was not at least an interim bottom, I'm going to have to retire. This guy, I mean, he's up there with Kobe.
If you were
incredible mind.
Oh yeah, if you were gonna follow two people, and just like use them as a macro guide in crypto, it'd be these two. They literally called the top and the bottom.
And keep in mind, they called the top and the bottom 6 months ahead of time.
Yeah. So.
Also, a couple of things to note here, and actually, he's got a tweet here that's going to segue into the whole Solana thing, and I'm going to apologize in advance just because I was away for most of the weekend. I did see it happen, but I don't know the technical details of it, but pretty hilarious that a Solana DAO voted to take control over $100 million of assets of somebody's wallet. I didn't think that was possible, but if you wanted another bear case on Solana, we're going to talk about that. But did you see his profile picture? No, that's a punk. Never mind. Sorry, he changed it back to punks, right?
Yeah, that's big news. That's big news because I'll tell that almost give that will give a lot of symbol, because everything's like virtue signaling in this world, and everyone wants to be part of a club, and like this guy is kind of king of the punks, right? And when he got all salty that Yuga bought them and changed to an MFer, and I will even say at the time he very clearly stated, I'm not sure how I'll feel about this in a few months. I'm giving you my base impressions. I need to take this all in. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying this is how it makes me feel right now. And this if this were anything, it would make me feel bullish on Yuga as getting a sort of nod from the punkarati. Here.
I'm gonna be fully honest with you. I was only skimming this morning and pulled up DC Investor and saw it, and I thought it was a vegan. I was just looking at the small
Did you see the conversation about vegans with him over the weekend?
No, okay.
Well, it was on Friday or Thursday, I think. Me and him had a little chat, but he said he didn't say anything about it. A very famous bastard named 888 Mooncat said, I am, given how we have very similar tastes in art and technology, I'm surprised that DC and I only share one collection. And DC responded back, oh, which one is that? And then the guy responded which one it was. And I said, oh, I was surprised it's not Begons, given that they are anti-punk, CCO, and generative, like art block. And he responded, just because I don't have something doesn't mean I ever will. But as you can see, I'm not the biggest PFP guy, blah, 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 which is funny to me because his banner is all PFPs now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was what he said about Begons. And
interesting. Yeah, but back to the whole punk realm, of course, Yuga announcing that they've hired somebody to manage the punk brand. I wish I had pulled up the tweet too, because I did see one over the weekend and I didn't save it, but the volume on CryptoPunks went very, very high ahead of this announcement. And somebody aptly pointed out that, congratulations to the people who know what's about to go down when nobody else does. But yeah, on Saturday and yesterday, the volume of CryptoPunks basically 10x'd overnight. The floor going from about 40 ETH 45 ETH, I think 42 ETH was the bottom. Well, maybe not even the bottom. Like they did drop down quite low. But yeah, CryptoPunk's floor now back up to, I think, 68 ETH. Of course, it doesn't show it on OpenSea because they're not sold on OpenSea. I was under the impression that Yuga was going to put them on OpenSea, but I can't say that I go shopping for punks very often. So,
And well, I know most people it's out of their price range, but when you're talking about blue chips, right?
it's a good idea, Dekenza. Yeah.
When you're talking about blue chips and it's like, oh, which one would I buy? Da, da, da. I've been so bearish on PFPs for 2 months. And the one that I said to keep an eye on, and on June 12th, I was like, it can't get any worse. Punks have bottomed. I said punks and rare Pepe. That was my, on June 12th, that was my epiphany. But, it was just that they had been too hated, too dismissed. They don't need to do anything. And people wondered what Yuga was going to do. I guess assigning them their own marketing person, as long as that person answers to Gaio's theory, I mean, that makes me feel pretty good about it. But then you got DC Investor throwing a punk on again, obviously saying that he's back. He never sold his punks. Remember, he was even saying, I don't know how I'll feel about this. I need to digest. He didn't do anything hasty like some people who like to make a show on Twitter or whatever. So Yuga announces this. Seems like punks have some life. And if they can even do for punks half of what they did for Bored Apes, you would expect them to have quite the run here during the next bull. Who knows when that will be?
I'm going to read off this tweet that Garga put out. We love CryptoPunks. It's no secret that Matt and John's creation was a massive inspiration for Bored Apes. Gordon Goner and I see punks as fine art, a generative art experiment etched onto the blockchain, adopted by a diverse community that stuck around in 2018 when so many left. And keep that in the back of your mind too. When we acquired punks from Larva Labs, there were only two things we knew we wanted to do. The first was to turn over commercial rights to NFT holders, similar to how we did it for Bored Apes. The new terms will be rolling out in the next couple weeks. Why hold up on that? These were frankly too significant to rush and too impactful for the NFT community at large to risk developing them in silo. The second thing was to do nothing for a while except listen. We've been doing that. On the whole, we think the punks community sees punks the same way we do, as fine art. So how best to steward this project? We approached Noah Davis, aka Non-Fungible Noah, who is responsible for bringing Beeple's historic The First 5,000 Days to auction at Christie's, along with the No Time Like the Present auction, which featured punks and apes side by side in Hong Kong. So essentially, he goes on to say why they hired Noah into it. But, obviously Non-Fungible Noah, very influential, very, bright mind in NFTs and whatnot, is going to be stewarding the CryptoPunks collection forward. So it seems like, a little bit of news, little bit of progress with that. But I think by and large, this is an interesting hire simply because I think a lot of people are in the same mindset as you, is that they didn't have to do anything and they shouldn't have to do anything, while the rest of the NFT community is all about roadmap, utility, building, where are you going, what are you planning on doing, things like CryptoPunks or generative art, things that are just art for art's sake, things that people like looking at, things that people like collecting or like having. Sometimes it's okay to just have cool shit that you want to own. There's a huge market for that in the world, right? Nobody was buying Jackson Pollocks and being like, well, what's the utility, right? They liked it because they could hang it on their fucking wall, show it off to their friends, and they liked looking at it.
Digital collectibles will be a lot bigger than regular collectibles. They're a lot easier to show off, and humans care about vanity. And there's only 10
and by the way, Jackson Pollock, no stranger to having, let's just call them derivative projects. I mean, there were hundreds, or not hundreds. There were so many people, not in the art community, that would look at that and the guy just splatters paint all over a canvas. This is an art, like a 5-year-old could do it, and then they would start doing it, and they looked like shit. But they said, "This is my Jackson Pollock." Ooh. Didn't stop Jackson Pollock's from being worth $100 million a pop.
There's over 1 million millionaires, and there are maybe 100,000 blue chips. That's going to be a crisis, a supply crisis in the making.
Keep in mind, a lot of these millionaires don't like to just own one of something.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh yeah. I mean, it's well, especially for blue chips. I think it's going to get a lot. I always said, I think apes are going to get to $1 million floor. I just don't know if ETH is going to be 10,000 or 2,000 when that happens. Who knows? But because of the limited supply, now what's going to happen because of that too? Not only will you see majorly inflated prices in blue chips, but elite collections will become new blue chips as well, just out of lack of supply. And it's going to be the collections that had a moment, some dark horses that exist right now, but it's all going to be historic stuff that's happened in the last year or two. And yeah, will we get 1 or 2 new blue chip projects a year? Probably. I do think that quality of art will come into the market, but it's going to be chasing a growing user base. And that is where, I think the major NASDAQ-like blow off top in digital assets has not happened yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna be very interested to see what happens when ETH starts to really get into up only mode. And again, that could be 6 months, it could be a year. Oh, I have no idea. That's not really what I'm about to say. What happens to the price of these things when ETH starts really pumping again? Because, you pointed out all the time that despite the fact that ETH went from $100 all the way up to basically 5,000, CryptoPunk still got higher and higher in terms of ETH value, as well as obviously USD value too. That being said, crypto starts drying up, people start exiting. Yeah, they start selling their illiquid assets to get their money out of the market and whatnot. But I'm curious as to what the mentality of somebody that's buying a 80 ETH Bored Ape right now, which is essentially what, let's just call it $80,000. If that floor goes back up to 125, but ETH also 5x's in value over that time, how enticing that money starts to become. Because I mean, you watch an $80,000 asset end up going to $700,000 at that point. I suspect that a lot of people that have been buying these, especially at their like hugely kind of inflated prices over the past 6 months, are not people that are overly apt to sell them. Right? Like, I don't think that I'm sure there are definitely some very ETH heavy whales that are going to be trading the swings, but I think most of the people are just like, I've always wanted one of these. I want to keep it around, and now's a great time to do it.
Well, I saw a lot of crypto Twitter people buying punks and Bored Apes over the last week, and it would be very hard to see things getting much cheaper in ETH terms, only because ETH has fallen so much in dollar. There comes a point where the US dollar value is so low, you're not really going to push it much lower in ETH terms, just because it doesn't. There's always buyers at a certain point.
I mean, yeah, and WGMI is always a site that I just scroll it just to see if there's something that I can pick out of it and whatnot, but it's not always like a great like site to get information. But I mean, if you look at the 7-day change on it, like, it is a pretty clear trend of like everything is really firming up. Like, just 7 days, 30 days does not look good. 1 day does not always look great, but the 7-day in here, it is just showing a pretty steady trend of like, this is green. This is almost the entire list is green there, right?
Well, I think
not many projects except the one that we are bullish on has dropped over that time.
Well, it's not. I think it's a race, right? Like, right now, I think NFTs are worth twice as much But if ETH goes twice as much first, then there's no reason for them to move. They can just sit where they are and ETH.
Correct. Yeah.
If ETH continues to stay in this $1,000 area for a sustained amount of time, I bet you NFTs double because in ETH terms, just because I think that they're all undervalued 50% in USD, right?
Yeah, I think we got a little bit more to go before people feel like we're getting on more stable ground, I guess. But yeah, I mean, you're already seeing it, so it's pretty hard to deny. A bunch of these projects up at the top, like Kaiju King's not up 7,100%. This was a bugged floor.
No, but it was huge. But I mean,
no, for sure. But
they went from 0.49 to 0.7 on the babies, and it wasn't obviously not just Kaiju Kings. A lot of NFT collections were rallying because they're too cheap.
Yeah, even shit like Mechaverse. I mean, I'm not buying Mechaverse ever, but I mean, if there are lots of people that are bullish on that project, it had a moment, it had a lot of attention, it's a recognizable name. It dropped down to 0.2, which is a pretty easy buy if you're even remotely bullish on that project. And maybe that's just recency bias that it's up to 0.5 right there. But I mean, I just I have no love for them. I've never liked them. But again, there's still lots of people that believe that that's in some weird way an important NFT collection. But yeah, I mean, across the board, there were lots of good pickups to be had. Even three landers sitting at 0.33 a week ago is looking good. Even 0.55 might not be a bad deal. Again, like if you're gonna buy these, I would just check and see what's actually going on in the community right now. But all these names that had big runs, big moments, they're recognizable. They're sitting there for the taking if you are sitting on ETH. But that's
remember, if these all double in ETH terms, they're not anywhere back to their highs. So this is it's a very easy buy for people who are liquid. Right,
especially
now.
Cash liquid, not even just ETH liquid. Like, I got a nice. I'm not. Please, again, this is not like financial advice or whatever. But you're working your job. Things are still going well there. You're getting paid. Oh, a nice bonus check runs in. Like, I don't know. Do whatever you want with it. But there are some juicy, especially in USD terms, deals out there now. The other thing I would say too is obviously NFT NYC is going on right there. I know that I said I was going to that. Obviously, I am not there, which was kind of disappointing. But tough times call for specific sacrifices.
And people always feel really bullish after those. All right,
they feel really bullish, but you're also I mean, watch for some projects that are planning big events and stuff like that. Someone in there, despite the bear market or whatever, is going to drop some big bomb or big announcement like Azuki did in California with Azuki with the Wiz Khalifa. Someone's going to drop something in there. So, I mean, look at the list of projects that are hosting stuff in NFT NYC. And if you think that, if you're remotely bullish on it and they're planning something big, they're really hyping it up, could be for a reason, might be a good opportunity to front run some stuff.
Yep.
A lot of that has already happened too. I mean, I know Cool Man's Universe has promised to have a big presence there and whatnot. It has been the recipient 50% up on the week, but they've got like some babies coming out too. Normally I follow that project pretty closely, but I've been what's in my portfolio now is what I'm sitting on for the time being. But they've got their next collection coming out.
Yep. Indeedy.
Let's cap it off with the Solana thing. We'll try and dissect that as much as possible, but I will pull up the Kobe tweet. He obviously posted some screenshots here that give it a little bit of context, but Solend, which is a protocol on Solana, Solend 1, the first governance proposal for Solend DAO has been proposed. And that was to grant emergency power to Solend Labs to temporarily take over the whale's account so the liquidation can be executed OTZ and avoid pushing Solana to its limits. This would be done via smart contract upgrade. Emergency powers will be revoked once the whale's account reaches a safe level. The DAO approved the ability to take over someone's wallet that had $100 million in assets in it, and the way that the DAO, or the way that it voted, was the vote was live for less than 8 hours. Apparently the site was down for about 4 of them, and quite frankly, when something pops up with an 8-hour time horizon, most people probably aren't even aware of it. Essentially $500,000 of voting yes and winning to take control over $100 million of user assets. Excellent stuff. And then he went on to tweet, new voting idea. Instead of liquidating the Soul End whale, everyone that votes yes to this proposal gets to keep the whale's funds instead. Soul End will have a lot of bad debt, but the token holders voted yes will be rich. Let's go. What the fuck is this, honestly? Like, what is going on in this ecosystem that a voting share of $500,000 can push through a DAO vote that they can just seize $100 million? This goes against pretty much everything that most people are trying to build in this industry. And if we were bullish on Solana through all of the outages, through all of the VC pumps, through all of the pretty poor distribution of tokens and all of that stuff.
Now, if
shit like this should red flag.
If I had $600 million worth of Solana sitting in my account, I would make sure there was 100 million in one scary wallet and 10 million in 50 small wallets. And then I would convince everyone that we need to target this gigantic whale who's going to dump on all of us in a DAO vote. And then I would spend a measly $500,000 to sway it to lock this account up and cause people to get bullish again, because now this account can't dump on you. Then I would methodically sell the other $500 million that I had into the pump, and peace out. But yeah, I guess the larger question is whether you're, did anyone think Solana was decentralized? Like, if you wanted a decentralized blockchain, I don't think you went to Solana.
There's a lot of things that people, there are Bitcoin maxis that will tell you ETH isn't decentralized.
Correct, because there is the ETH Foundation upgrading it. Tell me, could Vitalik lock a wallet if he wanted to, like in the ETH Foundation? I don't know.
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think so. Yeah, interesting. Hello, Hugo. What do you got going on today? Oh, yeah, so you were about to say something. Say it.
This is the second DAO. And this isn't even really an attack on Solana. I think this is an attack on DAOs by Kobe, which he hates.
Yes.
For good reason. And it's the second time. The other time was the OP debacle a couple weeks ago, where they really screwed up their launch, cost a lot of people money, and then they came up with some kind of vote to rectify it that was equally as much of like mulligan stuff. Like, oh, no, this didn't really let's just make a vote to roll back and pretend this never happened. Like that type of thing. And Kobe made an even more absurd proposal on top of that. I don't remember what it was. Something just like this that was equally as absurd as splitting the wallet up amongst the people who vote. And it got very good. OP was pissed. They were replying to it and saying that what he was doing was destructive and not helping. And, I think it really just goes after the structure of DAOs, which is something I've talked about for a lot. I am an independent thinker to the max. Ayn Rand once said that the largest minority in this country is the independent person, right? It is that is the one. Very few people want to be independent. They want consensus. They want tips. They want opinions. They want advice. They want how-tos. They want prescriptions. Very few people go at it on their own. To create a great organization, I think you need one man and a bunch of tools, all right? And Sure, it would be great to have the best possible tool in the best possible position. That doesn't always happen, but I still think it rests on one person. Consensus is poison. Focus groups are poison. It is a middling existence. It feeds the machine. If you want to talk about art and whatever art is in your respected field, whether that's business or freedom in your personal life or painting a picture, whatever your art is, it is arrived at through individuality. It is not arrived at through consensus. DAOs are faulty for 99.9% of applications. Period.
Yeah, they don't make a lot of sense. You can't convince me that a large swath of people can come to a consensus quickly and timely with a well-informed vote better than somebody who has a life of experience doing it. Now, I mean, there's trust elements of it that DAOs can be beneficial for, but like I don't think it is involved. I don't think it's I don't think that we're looking towards DAOs to be an actual like some kind of large scale business. You know what I mean? Like I think the one interesting proposal, and I do actually think it was from Kobe on one of his podcasts, was just that like a DAO could work if it's like a conglomerate of companies. Like if you had like 5 companies that, you know, are all highly focused on achieving something, you could have a trust-based network in which there's essentially 5 equal votes that, you know, each of these companies, or weighted votes too, that each of these companies have. And of course, you know, they are experienced in it, and there has to be some kind of consensus into the proposals that they're putting forward for the kind of conglomerate that they've put together. But again, those are individuals who are
the smaller the DAO,
well versed, and
the more focused the DAO.
A DAO would be great if you were like, if you and a group of friends were like, let's put some money together and start a little, you know, private fund of our own and whatnot. And instead of sitting there arguing over should we invest in this, should we invest in that, everyone gets a proposal and there's a vote on it, right?
No, I mean,
and it's automatically, you know, done.
It's a trustless voting system. I mean, that's really the innovation. We talk about smart contracts being the most important invention since smartphones, or maybe even the internet. And it's because it's a trustless, immutable voting system and ledger. So there probably are some very, as we stated, some very, very specific instances where a DAO may work, but it's just being used as a fundraising mechanism right now. And there are probably better fundraising mechanisms than DAOs.
Yeah. I was just scrolling through Twitter, his Twitter there too. My wife just asked if I owned any 3 Arrows coin because she read it went negative. Maybe the bottom is in sooner than we think. She just asked me if I'm friends with Justin Sun. Something isn't right. Just realized she doesn't exist and the voices aren't real. Thank God.
Yeah.
Apparently, ETH 2.0 is apparently pronounced ETH 2.0. Now say it out loud. They've taken us for absolute fools. Is that true? Is that how people are saying it? ETH 2.0? I don't like it.
It's a meme from over the weekend where
I don't get memes. People post copy pastes all the time, and I'm like,
yeah. Well, I saw it 7 times last week, and I don't remember who I saw it from, but the joke was they told us ETH 2.0. What they really meant was ETH 2.0.
Oh, ETH 2.0. I get it.
Yeah.
They spelled 2 wrong.
Yeah. No, they didn't. Oh, yes. Well, to make the joke make sense, they spell it. What did you retweet, a kaiju or something?
No, I don't know. I just went to my feed.
Look at that. We love
kaiju. Yeah. All right. Well, Monday morning. How's the S&P doing? Almost up 1%. Rallying.
Yeah, I mean, remember, we're closed today. It's Juneteenth.
That's right.
Yeah. Futures were had a short extended session. I believe I forget if they closed at 11 a.m. or 1 p.m. But they closed early today.
Right.
And we will reopen again Tuesday, normal regular trading hours. The only thing I do believe that we have bottomed in price, not necessarily in volatility. So this was a very similar rally to our last 3-day weekend, which was Memorial Day, which fell on a Monday. And we rallied big on Friday. We went even higher up to 4170 or maybe even 4200. We got pretty close during the holiday session because there was no liquidity and it just levitated up. And from that point, it was down only for weeks. Then we made new lows. So people will be, even if it doesn't hold, I would expect a head fake when we open tomorrow and us to open down. If we continue up, great. I stated this last week, I think, on the show, but I do believe we will see 4,400 in the S&P before we see 3,400. I don't even know if we're going to see 3,400 at this point. Right now, here's what's happened. You had the Fed, which appeared to be behind the curve based on backward-looking data. So they did something aggressive. Now, the numbers that we were experiencing last month, that data is going to start coming out. I believe it's going to show that inflation is cooling, and it's going to give the impression that, maybe the Fed was not behind the curve. And now that they did this big 75-point move, they're really on top of things. And if we look at the labor market, if we look at the economy, it's barely budged down. So whether it's true or not, the narrative that will come out of it is, whoa, the Fed threaded the needle. They got inflation down, and we still have a bustling, tight labor market at our feet. So that is going to cause you to go, oh, shit, we went down too much throwing. Now, if we bounce to 4,400, that's right up into the downtrend line for the year. Remember, we bounced up to 4,600 earlier this year after the initial drop on the Ukraine war and those first looks at inflation. And then this second time we dropped on the big inflation numbers coming and made new lows. Bouncing back to 4,400 would not be out of the woods by any means, but boy, would people feel bullish. I mean, 4,400 would be a stone's throw from the all-time highs at 4,800. People would be wondering why they were so bearish. And then we're going to come up into the fall. Now, that is when we're going to find out whether the Fed really did thread the needle or not. I think it's probably 60-40 that they didn't. And there's going to be more bad numbers that come out in the fall, causing the market to dip again from 4,400, maybe all the way back to the lows, maybe slightly newer lows between, 34, 3,600, like a couple hundred points lower than the lows that we just made. Or maybe it's not a huge reaction and we pull back, 4,000 or 4,100 or something like that. Or maybe they actually successfully thread the needle and we just continue going up from there. We're gonna see if that unfolds, but I do believe the market, both crypto and stocks, got way ahead of themselves, and these next few weeks are going to bear that out. Here's the big one into the end of the month. You have 3 banks and institutions all scheduled to buy $50 billion of stock. And you have U.S. pension funds and passive strategies that can buy up to 198 billion. And with the decline we've seen and the discounts that are out there right now, I expect them to deploy all of that. And they have a schedule. They have to do it by the end of June. So we could see $250 billion flow into the stock market now at the lows while people are leaning bearish, while there are record shorts and record puts out there. could cause quite the squeeze. So I think that we're near there. Let's see. I think we got most of the systemic issues out of crypto. So I see no reason why it couldn't levitate even beyond what we expect. That's why I think 2,500 or 3,000, we maybe have a 40% shot of getting up to those levels. I think 1,800 or 1,700 probably feels like a cakewalk if macro does what I expect it to. If I'm wrong and macro falls apart and we see new low and blah blah blah, I don't expect crypto to do shit all because it's just going to have those headwinds. But if I'm correct, we get that nice bounce in the S&Ps up to 4,400 into August, maybe into September. I expect crypto to follow suit. 1,700 minimum, probably 2,500 if we get that high.
I've flip flop on this a lot. Because I am trying to look back in hindsight and maybe I'm just wrong or maybe I missed it. But like, I think NFTs did, but I don't think crypto ever, it doesn't feel like it ever hit euphoria. Like, I'm sure NFTs did. Believe me.
I agree. It definitely didn't. I don't think it could have. I don't think the rails were in place to enable euphoria yet. Like, think about how small our market is. If real money, if pension money, your average person, grandparents, boomer, if those people moved into crypto, you don't even know the rise we was. I mean, again, like, go look at charts of the NASDAQ in 99, the stock market in 29. I still expect that to happen in crypto, okay? And we're in the early adoption part of that. We just don't have the rail. We don't have the user interface. We don't have the regulation in place. Here's the point I was going to make before. Regulation has been this big, scary thing hanging over us. This thing that, oh no, like, what's going to blah, blah, blah. Well, now that we've been destroyed, I actually think regulation could be the bullish catalyst that starts the next bull run. And I don't mean the counterbounce we're going to see right now, whether it goes to...
Well, it's like you said, if institutional money really starts deploying and that price starts to move, and Analyze says, feels like we were on the way to crypto euphoria, then macro hit. That could be very true. And I will say, if the macro situation is bad, like, crypto's going to be bad too. A lot of people are like, oh, it's a hedge against those markets. No, it's not.
Long term it is. Short term it never is.
Yeah,
that's what people should realize.
And if you look long term, it absolutely has been that. But I think there's enough people that are still around and interested, and they're feeling this pain, but like, a lot of those people that have exited, I can guarantee you they're still paying attention to it, even if it's just to watch it go down further and feel at least vindicated that they bought at 2,000 or bought at 4,000, sold at 1,500, and now it's going down further, and like, wow, I did do the right thing. Okay. But if we had a bit of a bounce here, if macro kind of calms down and we start to get into more bull market territory in that sense, I think a lot of those people, because they're still watching, are going to go, oh shit, like, maybe this isn't dead. And then they have to feel like they get back into. Now, of course, institutional money are the ones that are really going to drive it up. But I think it could, if it were to happen soon, really spark some retail frenzy too, because I think a lot of people are gonna be like, shit, I thought this stuff was dead, like, I need back in, right? I think if you draw it out a bit further, and these institutions and whatnot accumulate a lot slower and don't kind of push the price up very aggressively, I think it'll be a little bit more calm for a while.
Here's what would really kill retail would be if we rallied to 3,000, okay? Because if we rallied more than people expected, FOMO would kick in. Yeah. And if we rally to 3,000 and people are like, shit, we're going to 4K, and they buy in there, and then they smack it back down to 1,500 in October, a lot of people are going to be done with crypto for good. Like, this motherfucking piece of, like, you know what I mean? Like, you sell the bottom now, and then you FOMO back in at 3,000, and then they smack you for 50% again. You're just going to lose your mind. And, given what I think is going to happen, spin with macro. I do think the rails are in place for that, but it's really about regulation and user interface. If we want crypto to take that euphoric step, we actually need those things. So as you can never judge what something does while you're in it, I think that's what this is going to bring. You're going to get regulation, and the short-term reactions to that regulation will be bearish. We will, whenever the news comes up, we will maybe that'll be it. Maybe we'll rally to 3,000 in October, and then we'll get something out of the SEC, out of Gensler or something, like a directive about crypto knocks us back down to 1,500. Then people realize, oh shit, now Goldman Sachs, now JP, now all these guys to get in. And over the next year, we get back up to the all-time highs. And then by then, the rails are in for the public to start moving in a big way. And that's when you could start to get into the euphoria stage of $1 million Bitcoin and $250,000 ETH and all that.
I'm in.
Like, if the market does what I think it's going to do over the next 6 years, you're going to be looking at $10 trillion Apple, $10 trillion Tesla, right? Like right now, $1 in $3 trillion, it's a lot of money to get your head around. We printed so much loot over the last few years. Once the macro fears are gone and that starts flooding back into risk assets, it is going to go a lot higher than people expect. Leverage is going to get fashionable again. You're going to see a 29 crash off of and instead, I think the S&P is going to get to 12,000, maybe even 15,000. Think about where it is right now. It's going to be a hell of a. You're going to see a lot of $5 and $10 trillion companies. I would expect to think something like Bitcoin or ETH, which could have a $1 trillion company built on top of it. All right. At that point, I would think that those things could be worth $5 or $10 trillion themselves. Maybe even when the public really decides crypto is here, they may go, wow, look at this network. It already has a $1 trillion company on it. What if they built $20 trillion companies on it, right? How much should this network be valued? $100 trillion?
Well, that's just it. Imagine that you were able to buy a piece of the transactions of the internet.
You don't even, whatever you think is going to be the euphoria phase, it's going to be 10 times crazier than that. So just be solvent when that begins, and you'll be gravy.
Yeah. Position yourself, in that you can last until those points for sure. All right, my friend, we got to wrap this bad boy up. Happy Monday. What do you got going on today? We got Moon Monday later.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to Moon Monday.
As always, for sure. And then just watching the markets, seeing what's going on. I got to look at some NFTs. I got to try and catch up a little bit there. See what's going on at NFT NYC.
I got such a feeling about crypto art. I talk about that collection a lot. Super thin floor. Crypto art is that generative collection, like autoglyphs. We talked about it last week.
Yeah. We had it pulled up.
It's at like 0.13 right now, and it's maybe 30 of them to a 0.75 floor or something. Like, I think a lot of that is because of these new contracts that OpenSea went to, and it delisted a lot of people's crypto arts, and they just forgot. But you know what that means. We could get that supply crunch crazy pump initially just because there's none on the floor. Then people would obviously start listing and knocking it back down. But man, just got a feeling about crypto art. It's very cheap. 0.13. That's like $10 where Ethereum is right now.
Goblin's got something going on.
Do they?
At NFT NYC? I think so, yeah. The burger truck or something. I don't know.
Sweet. I like it. I have not been airdropped a Goblin yet.
No, I'm trying to figure out how that actually is working and like when they're starting it, because I now like
Free money?
Well, I mean, I just like Illuminati as a play. I kind of always had. We talked about that too, and I mean, like, full disclosure, we have them. But I mean, I feel like it's a lot easier to be bullish on them now, especially what you know that they've pulled off. And like, I think that there's definitely a world where like even Illuminati is sitting at 0.8 right now. If you're liquid, could be pretty decent to load up on some of them. One as a play for, you know, a shot at the airdrops, but even as a longer term hold.
And man, I have been pounding the table on things like Curve DAO, CRV, Looks, ENS, X2, Y2. And boy, these things are going to pump so much more than ETH. You know, if ETH does double or triple over the next couple months, these things are going to 10x off their lows. So, I mean, Looks already from 19 cents to 40 cents. X2, Y2 from 13 cents to 19 cents. It was up to 21 earlier. The coins that have revenue, Uniswap,
Yes, yeah. And that's the important thing, right?
X2, Y2. Even if they are still governance tokens now, I expect that's where the big revelations get. It's going to be when regulation comes in and Uniswap's actually able to play nice. They're going to go, okay, now our governance token's a share of revenue too, because now we're allowed to be a security without worrying about what's going to happen to us, right?
I mean, if you think that, like, I have Looks Rare up right now, not on the screen, kind of thing, and it's like, if you think that the bottom is close to being in, and right now this thing is generating a 56% APY, which used to be like incredibly high, but even 56, like, if there's growth on the coin and then you're getting rewards in the coin and the WETH offers, so you're getting that plus the AP, like that's
last thing anybody wanted to hear was APY. I think that's the dirty word now.
I know, I get it, but I mean, even if you believe in like the ecosystem that they've built to be sustaining that, because a lot, that's what they were talking about with Celsius and stuff like that. It was just like where is the yield coming from? And they had the guy on the show, and they're like, well, it's like a bank, and they put money in here and this money, and they were like, oh yeah, cool, that makes sense. And it was like, wait, maybe that was too aggressive, right?
Celsius token from 16 cents to $1 over the weekend.
Back to bullish, eh?
Well, it was at it was at $4, but FMC's favorite plays are rummaging through the trash, right? I love looking at the things people have left for dead, where somebody like Sam Bankman-Fried can make a statement over the weekend, and all of a sudden people go, well, some of these guys are going to be saved. Worth a flyer here. And, you see, it's not about being bullish on Celsius. It's about it went from 16 cents to $1. Thanks for the money. Look for those extremes, right? Like, especially not, when you're doing leverage on something like ETH, which can move so much in one direction and stop you out, blah, blah, blah. With a shit coin, you're kind of protected because it can't liquidate you necessarily. And these are so low. The ones with revenue, really nice over. Everything was popping over the weekend just because ETH at least is trying to trick us into thinking it found a bottom, whether it has a bottom. Whether it has a bottom or not. Yeah, Edgar, nice. We love Illuminati. We've owned them since the beginning. Star Wolves, nice little 100% pump over the weekend. Not too shabby.
We're still doing stuff, yeah, for sure.
ETH tried to go down to 1,100 and scare everyone back to 1,140 now. Saying, come on, suckers, throw some leverage at me. Come on. Give me a little lev. And the moment we do, it wants us. Man, trying to bait us back in, man. I mean, he is just cleaning up people's leverage.
Well, if you have the money to do it,
run it both ways, baby.
Especially because he's making money off the leverage too, right?
Well, what I'm sure what their algorithms are doing is trying not to take an uneven amount of bets either direction and just make money off the fees.
Yeah.
Though with somebody as brilliant as him, do I think he can make a variable type algorithm. I don't know. Obviously, the most cynical concepts would be that if he knows where the majority of liquidations are, he uses money to push it down there to force them and liquidate in both directions. But that seems very cynical to me. Also very dangerous as they're trying to be completely legitimate. And I don't think the guy cares about money. You know what I mean? He cares about the game. Like, that's seems obvious by the clothes he wears. I don't know.
I think it's easy to not care about money when you're a legit full-blown billionaire by the age of 30.
Well, he's not a profit maxi, is what I'm saying.
No, but I'm just saying, like, he's still here.
I think
because if you made $1 billion and it was only about the money, I mean, yeah, I guess you could try 10 or try for 100 or, try and race Elon to being a trillionaire or whatnot. But like, if it was only about the money and you're 30 years old, I mean, you could pack it in. You have generational wealth many times over, and you can do whatever the fuck you want, right? So like the fact that he's still there doing interviews, running this company, being public and all that stuff, like I think you're right about that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's and we see it all the time in NFTs. Fucking Pixelmon guy makes $70 million for a couple months of fake teaser videos and stuff like that, and then just fucks off. Maybe they're still working. He didn't fuck up.
He hired a bunch of people. They've done a few spaces.
If nothing else, to just save his own ass.
I guess so. I don't know where he's located. I mean,
they doxed the shit out of him.
But is he American? I'm saying there are places you could be located where it doesn't matter what you
Australia, do. Where there would be
yeah, they're strict over there.
Yeah, there would be consequence for sure. The arrest in January shook him, right? Probably, yeah. I mean, I can't remember those kids. Yeah.
They've been wow. Did you guys run out and buy X2Y2 when I said that? Nice little pamp. Did that Kim.com guy? They've been harassing him for decades for that. Like, what did he do? He did like a Pirate Bay-esque site or whatever, where you could pirate, skin it, whatever it's called.
I'm not sure, yeah.
But yeah, he's a Kiwi. They've been harassing him for years.
I mean, that's why CZ always running around. People always speculating that guy can't stay still.
Yeah, everybody be preying on his downfall.
All right, man. With that, we will wrap this show up. It is 10:53. It is Monday, June 20th. Thank you for tuning into episode 140 of the AM show. Forgot to update the title again. My bad. But yeah, if you tuned in, I mean, it was all just market conversation. Again, I mean, there's the NFTs thrown in there. There's the backdrop of NFTs and where they can go during all of this. But crypto having a pretty nice little 24 hours, getting us off some of the very lows that we had hit. So you love to see it. Where it goes from there, pretty much anybody's guess. But I think most of us are hoping for a little bit more of a relief bounce and push some distance in between those ugly 3-digit numbers.
The resistance is 1190 and 1400. Those are the areas that it would need to break above to have a sustained rally. So look at
there you go. 1200, 1190 and 1400. So we'll see if we can make a run towards that today.
1377 to be exact, but what's a few?
Who's counting?
Between friends.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Always love it when you tune in. If you could do us a solid, if you tuned in and you haven't, please just throw us a like on that button. It does actually help. If not, no big deal. We will be back on the air tomorrow morning, 9:30 Eastern. We'll see what happened over the last 24 hours. And hope to see everybody then. Free market. Get us out of here.
Good luck at the tables, DJ.